Okay, so today we are going to touch on chapter 3, our first lesson on surds. And then we are going to finally we are going to end with rationalizing of the denominator. So the question are, number one, what's a surd, right? Okay, and number two, not what is rationalizing the denominator. Actually, the question should be, why must we rationalize the denominator? Okay, which is more important than what is it. So we will cover both the what and the why, but the important part is why must we do it. Okay, first, let's look at surd. Okay, this is actually in surd form. So what do you think is a surd? It's a root form, right? So a surd is in a root form. It doesn't necessarily have to be a square root, but for this chapter, everything will be in a square root. Okay, so everything will be power half. So let's look at this. Now, after learning this chapter, this will not be accepted as a final answer anymore because this is not in the simplest form. So how can we simplify this? We will use the law of indices. We can actually split 50 to contain a perfect square inside. So what perfect square is contained inside a 50? Yeah, so you realize straight away that actually I can times 25. So what times 25? It will be 2 times 25. So why do we do that? According to the law of indices, square root of 25 times 2 is the same as writing square root 25 times square root 2. Okay, what happens if you don't believe me? Yeah, just press calculator lah. You press this, you get an answer. You press this, you get another answer. You press this, you get another answer. Alright, so if you don't believe, okay, this is actually according to the law of indices that you learned for Emacs. So, since we know what is square root 25, we got to simplify it, which is, because it's a perfect square, right? Once we square root it actually get 5. And the final question is, can we simplify 2 anymore? So this will be the final form. Okay, the question is, can I write in decimals? If the question never specify to write it in surd form, you can write it in decimal. But many a times when you're answering this question, they will specify that you must answer in the surd form. Now, how do they force you to answer in surd form? They will write, okay, leave your answer. Sometimes they use the word surd form. Sometimes they write, leave your answer in this form. Then very obvious, right? So you just leave it in surd form. Okay. So sometimes they ask you to leave your answer in this form. And then they ask you what is the value of A. Okay, cool. So you can write the value of A is 5, or you can write the answer is 5 square root 2. So it depends on how the question is being asked. So far, any question? So this is called simplifying of the surd form. Okay, then let's move on to this. Before we touch on this, what do you think we are going to do with these two brackets? We are going to expand it, right? Now, before we expand, your final answer, what do you think it will look like? This is very important. Yes, this look like A squared minus B squared equals to A plus B bracket A minus B. So it's a difference of 2 squared, right? So after you expand, what do you think the final answer will look like? What does it look like, the final form? Anyone have an idea? Yes, rational number? Okay, yeah. It will look like, basically it just look like a rational number. There's no more square root. What he's trying to say is, okay, let's recap on that. Okay, Nigel has used the word rational number. Okay, my question is, do you even know what's rational number? You all got the guilty face. One person, the eyes straight away look down already. Okay, so what are rational number? Please, let's before we expand it, expanding part is very easy only. So, yeah, I'm glad Nigel used this word. Rational numbers are? Yes, numbers. Okay, please take note. As AMAX student and as Sec 3 student, by now you should know this. Numbers that can be expressed, please note this down. Numbers that can be expressed as a fraction. Now, there's a condition. A and B are special number. What numbers are they? Constant also, where A and B are integers. Okay, the more specific terminology will be the word integers, which means this is not a rational number. You cannot do this because the numerator is not an integer. So you cannot play cheat like that. 0.5, you can convert it to a rational number, which will become 1/2. So basically, rational numbers are any number that you can convert to a fraction. All right, so both A and B must be integers. Expand, tell me what's the final answer. You try it. I say already the expansion is not difficult. Yeah, very fast. The answer is 1. Okay, how come your friend can get it so fast? Is it because they were expanding while I'm talking? No, right? Because the form is square root 5 square minus 2 square. Now, after a while, you realize square root 5 square is actually just 5, right? So nobody will write this anymore after a while. They will just know that my answer is just 5 minus 4. Okay? After a while, you get it. But if you don't get it, you can do this step by step. You'll be a square minus b square, right? Using the identity here. So a square minus b square. If you still can't get it out later, don't worry. I'll expand step by step and show you. So answer is 1. Okay, the last example here. Okay, once more, this cannot be the final answer during your examination. This cannot be the final answer. Okay, the reason is the denominator, note this, the denominator cannot have the denominator cannot have a surd form for your final answer. Okay, for your final answer. So you can go up to this stage, but you cannot leave it as the final answer. So if we cannot have the denominator as a surd form, right? What must we do? Yes, the opposite of this, which is what plus what? Yes, square root 2 plus 1. And what must I do to the numerator? I must also do the same so that we have not changed the value. Square root 2 plus 1 and square root 2 plus 1 is basically the value is 1, right? When you take this over this. So we are not changing the value, but we are manipulating it so that the denominator, the surd form, will disappear. Okay, let's do this very quickly. Yes? Yeah, okay. So, thank you, Nigel. In order to do it properly, please put the bracket, and we can actually do the denominator very fast. Okay, can you tell me what will the denominator be if you are following the lesson? What do you think will be the denominator? 1, very fast, right? So what will happen is we will have square root 2 times square root 2. That will be 2, and then we will a square minus b square. Okay, I'll write this out. Is that okay? Must I write square root 2 square? No lah, it's very scary to write square root 2 square. It's very ugly. Okay, so we have completed the rationalizing the denominator, but the numerator, it is okay to have surd form. It is not possible to eradicate all the surds when you have a fraction like that. So the numerator will have the surd, which is 2 square root 2 plus how much? Plus 2. Please don't put plus 1. Okay, and finally, we have 2 square root 2 plus 2. So the final question is, must we factorize out the 2? Is it necessary? Okay, for the last final form, you don't have to. Why? Because the question actually sometimes will ask you to leave it in the form a plus b square root 2. They will ask you to write in this form, a plus b square root 2. So is this a plus b square root 2? Almost lah, almost. So if you are very, very particular, you should write it as 2 plus 2 square root 2. So you may be saying, wow, so nice, they put the square root 2 for me. Yeah, we are very nice. This is the actual form that we will ask you to put in. We will actually ask you to put it in this form. So once you see the question ask you to put it in this form, you will know that they want you to rationalize the denominator. Okay, the last thing I want to mention is, whether they say or never say, you must rationalize the denominator automatically, because the denominator cannot have the surd form for the final answer. Cannot. All right, so that's all.